Per the Oregon meetings law, this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast on youtube.com. If you don't feel comfortable being recorded, feel free to leave now.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you. Welcome, everyone. This is our first meeting after our winter break. So it's good to see everyone back, and welcome to our guests who are visiting us for perhaps the first time tonight. First thing up would be our minutes from the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the November meeting? Oh, and you're all muted, by the way. Okay, thank you, Karin.
I'm good.
Okay. No additions or corrections? Oh, thanks, Karin. No additions or corrections?
Oh, look good, Wendell. Good job.
Yes. Wendell is our recorder and he does an excellent job. So is there a motion to accept the minutes as submitted? Oh, thank you, Joe. Second, thank you, Karin. The minutes shall stand as submitted. Wonderful. And just on our agenda, we do have a fire report. Now, since COVID has struck us, the fire report is on their website. So that is the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. Just go to their webpage and they have the current information and updates always on that site. And next on our agenda is our police liaison report. And we have Officer Andler with us tonight. And I'll have you take the floor. Oh, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I got big fingers and not hitting the right buttons. Good evening, everyone. I don't have a ton for you because it's kind of been COVID business as usual. I can kind of tell you the trends that we're dealing with. I've told you in past meetings what we're dealing with, but lots of theft, lots of crime, lots of stolen vehicles, and just sort of unprecedented amounts of defiance and people eluding, running, fighting every time we attempt to take law enforcement action is kind of the new normal. Very noticeable. I've been doing this for 20 years and it's unprecedented. The jail is taking felonies now, but we're still stuck. Most of our calls for service really are in the core area and they're behavioral issues. They would be categorized as minor crimes like disorderly conduct. They get called in as suspicious people or unwanted people, just sort of bad behavior that scares people, but we don't have a lot of resources to deal with it. So it kind of goes on and on and on. We do the best we can. That's very normal and at a peak level. And I guess one of the things I thought I'd bring up, because I don't think it gets talked about a lot, is our calls for service are going up in a weird way. Like crime's up, sure, but Oregon has made so many reforms to policing that we're not a very proactive police department anymore. Nobody in Oregon is. It's hard to be proactive and fight crime. We're very reactive. That's been sort of the trend to the reform. So it's not just us, it's most of Oregon and Washington. And so in that reactive policing, those calls for service are very high, but we have the time to handle them barely because we're not being proactive, which is what we used to do pre-COVID. So there's a lot of repetition to the calls. And one of the interesting things is the number of calls that you wouldn't think would go to the police and we really don't have a great answer for are going up because people feel stressed out. They don't know what to do. And we're sort of a last resort. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna call the police. So a lot of interesting calls that are not very much police matters are very high. And one of the interesting things is a lot of mentally ill people call 911 now at a alarming rate where you can get hundreds of calls from the same person. And due to liability, WACA, which is our dispatch center, has to field them to us. and they're very high. We're dealing with a lot of folks who are calling 40, 50, 60 times in a month, 4 or 5 times a day, with issues that are really psychological and not something that the police have an ability to help with. We provide them resources, we give them everything we can, but they continue to call. That's been a really odd trend. And then specific to those, I don't have anything really unique. It's just mostly theft. Stolen vehicles are the main one, catalytic converters are the main one, and retail theft. You don't have a lot of retail stores. So I would be more than happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, sir. Just out of curiosity, you guys are on 24/7.
Yep.
When do you sort of have the most problems? Is it really at night or during the day? I mean, serious problems. Just out of curiosity.
That hasn't changed. It's always been, the pattern is when people are awake, which is it sort of picks up around 9, 10, 11 in the morning, accelerates to rush hour, can quiet down about now, and then pick back up with sort of drugs and drinking. That's always been the pattern. What's different is the character of the calls, and what we do has really changed. I mean, it's not that much different, but how we handle it's different. What resources we have are different, and the types of calls. And but the time frames of things are the same. The folks at night are really busy. And we're also, all police are struggling with retention. We're going to be hiring a lot of new people. Each time we go to hire, we have more openings than we can fill. And that's not unique to us. That's every police department in Oregon. But one of the things we're seeing, which is a first, is we're seeing police leave the state. They're just going to police in another state, despite how many years they have in their pension. Usually the younger folks who don't have too many years in the pension system. But that's gonna make hiring it is probably one of our main priorities right now, is hiring to keep staffed.
When is the next police academy?
Well, as you can imagine, COVID protocols, we have one recruit. There's always a police academy, but we're having a hard time getting them into the classes because every police department is going through the same thing in Oregon. It's not unique to us. So we have one guy at the academy right now, and he's been sent back from COVID protocols at least twice. So it's slowed down. COVID has slowed down the academy's ability to operate. They've closed multiple times in the last 2 years. So they're going to be playing catch up for quite a while, but they are getting through the academy, and he'll be coming out shortly. And then we've got a wave of people going in April is, I think, what I heard is our next big group heading down there. So lots of new people, but not enough. It's going to be hard to keep up. But that's everywhere in Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for Officer Andler? Karin, yeah.
Yes, I was wondering if you'd seen an increase in like people putting up tents and basically being homeless. Is there an increase in that in Beaverton area?
Absolutely. That's been going up for forever. Yeah.
So what do you do?
It's not a crime. We let them do it. So we have a bike team of 4 people that are focused on homelessness and resources to the homeless. We have a mental health crisis team, and we address the issues. Most of the behavioral issues we see downtown are homeless people, and we try and deal with it one at a time, but we don't have a lot of enforcement actions we can take. So they just kind of continue. The same people continue with the same behaviors. Eventually, when it becomes a safety issue where it's more than just creating a commotion and bad behavior like breaking windows or something, or you do it enough times, the jail will take them for a few hours so we can at least interrupt the behavior for a short time. But max, they'll come right back. And the turnover is enormous of folks. So we used to know everybody more or less, and now they're all new. Every day is new people. I've never seen them before. And then every now and again, we'll see somebody like, where have you been? I've seen you in months. You're back at it. So it's real interesting.
Is the turnover because they're just moving around, or is it because they're actually moving out of the area permanently and other people are just filling that space?
They're truly transient in the sense that honestly, the Max line is a sort of default homeless shelter, because every night when Max closes down, the trains come into El Monica and there's 10 people they're trying to get off the train. And so you have to understand, Max is moving folks for free all over the Portland metro area. You can go anywhere you want that Max goes. So they move around freely because of Max. They can come in and out of cities constantly. You just go to the Max, get on. It's not like you got to pay for it. So they're very mobile. So they might get into a problem with somebody, or they might not like it here. Or they might have an opportunity somewhere else, or they want to do something else, but they move around easily with Max. So they'll disappear and then we'll see them again. The folks around the library are pretty steady. It's sort of the same folks because they're living out of cards, or they're living in the bike shelter. Those are the folks we all know. It's kind of the same cast of characters. But just generally around the core, around Max, it's a ever-changing scenery of folks.
And then Wendell popped up a question here too, and that'll probably get to be our last question for you today. But he wanted to know if there has been a change in the drug problem recently.
Well, we basically made it de facto legal and there's no penalties. So yeah, it's massive. So I'll give you a common call and I'll tell you our response. Welfare check on a man passed out in a parked car in a private parking lot with a needle sticking out of his arm. Okay, that's concerning. He might drive, but he hasn't. It's not DUI. His car is a protected space, like a home, very, very, very protected by the Constitution. Heroin, which I can see it is de facto legal. It's merely a violation, and he's already consumed it. It's in his bloodstream, so it is not a crime to be high. And the most we can do is knock on the window. Hey, you need anything? You okay? You overdosing? We Narcan a lot of people. We use Narcan a lot. Narcan is a way to interrupt an overdose from opiates, and fentanyl is the thing that's killing everybody right now. So we see that a lot. So yeah, overdoses are sky high deaths. Drug overdoses have surpassed in America. Drug overdoses are cause of death higher than all traffic crashes and all gun violence for the first time in the history of America. So drugs are a big deal. Yeah, we deal with it constantly, but we're not arresting people. We're just checking on them and Narcanning them and trying to do that. So the biggest part of drugs is drugs were illegal. And so most of the people committing crime happen to also be using drugs, and that's what's driving them to need to commit the crime to support the drug habit. So drugs and the investigation of drugs was the gateway into proactively stopping the car clouders, the car thieves, the frauds, people doing fraud, the people doing other crimes of property burglaries, all the things they do to support the drug habit. So that's what's one of the biggest changes to us, is that since it's not a crime, there's not much we can do with it. We had a guy who was legally armed to the teeth. We thought he was DUI because he was weaving, but our probable cause dissipated on his DUI. but we could smell heroin in the car. Like if you can smell the heroin that strong, there's a lot of it. And we were racking our brains with case law and what we could do. And we were like, I mean, we can smell heroin, but he only showed us user amounts of cocaine and heroin. He passed the DUI field sobriety tests. He's armed legally. And we're like, wow, what do we do? We didn't know. It's kind of a brave new world for how we're policing. We're kind of stuck with new laws, and we're like, we've lost mobile vehicle exception in Oregon, which is a big deal. And drugs are legal. So it's just changed how we police. We're basically reacting and trying to interrupt things that are happening that are a danger to the community. And when we can, investigating property crimes. But there's not a lot of penalties right now for that. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
My story, I'm very optimistic. I apologize.
That's okay. We'll just hope for better times, definitely.
Sure are.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh, it looks like
Thank you.
another
Thank you,
one of the
officer.
panelists,
But
is saying thank you for your service.
oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're here.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, you guys have a good meeting. I'm still on duty, so I'm actually going to have to go back to work. But
Okay,
Right.
thank you so much.
okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Quickly, for the benefit, right before our mayor gets to speak, for the benefit of our guests who have logged in tonight, we are the West Beaverton Neighborhood Association Committee, and there are 11 in the city of Beaverton. Just means the city is divided up into 11 parcels, and we call ourselves NAC, NAC, short for Neighborhood Association Committee. And the purpose of it is we're all volunteers in each neighborhood, and the purpose is having that connection between our neighborhoods and the citizens living here and our city government. So that's one of the big things we have. And we also have the opportunity to sponsor events. And this summer coming up, you're going to see 3 events that will incorporate the collaboration between 3 of these NACs. So the Sexton Mountain neighborhood, the Highland neighborhood, and ours, West Beaverton. So I'll be looking forward to those. It'll be fun. And so we do have the great honor of having our mayor here tonight with us. And she does have just a little bit of time. She has another meeting to attend. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Mayor Beaty.
Awesome, thank you. It is a night of meetings for sure. I'm hitting a few NACs and just got off another meeting to join you guys. I didn't have a real agenda. I wanted to just give you the opportunity. I was going to give you a quick overview on what we're working on, answer some questions that you have. So thanks for letting me come into your meeting tonight. I would say the biggest thing with City Council right now that we're working on is setting our priorities. So in December, we had a all-day summit with City Council. It was the first time that all of our council had actually been in person together in over a year. And we set a high-level framework for goals we want to accomplish. In the shift of government that we have gone through from the strong mayor to the city manager mayor configuration we're in, it is the council's job to set high-level goals, and it's the job of the city manager to come back and say, based on your goals, here is the work plan for the year. So next Tuesday, we are going over the city manager's work plan to either bless it or say we want things to change, or here's kind of the direction we're moving. I highlight that as a level of importance because sometimes in the last year in this transition of government, it feels like maybe we're not walking or moving as fast as we had, as we're kind of trying to figure out the roles of what everyone does. As the full-time mayor, the majority of my time is spent doing intergovernmental relationship work with other jurisdictions. Right now, our state government is in session. So our senators and state reps are in Salem's working on bills. So I spend a lion's share of my time weighing in on bills that impact the city, bringing along coalitions to do good work. Right now, the 8 largest cities in Oregon are working on an ask of the legislature to give us money to address homeless services. As one could imagine, there's nothing in our budget to address homelessness to the degree that we're experiencing it. And so that's one of the things 8 mayors are coming together to do, to ask the state government to intervene and help give us the resources we need to address some of the problems we see every day. We have a lot of rules that I think people don't realize we have to operate under. A little bit of what the previous officer was talking about was the right to rest. So if someone is sleeping in a government space, like in the park, the Boise v. Martin case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and we cannot tell people don't sleep here and don't be homeless here. That is not how it works. So we have a lot of things that we have to take into consideration when we're operating within the city. I don't think it's insurmountable. I think it causes us to have to think differently, to come up with new creative solutions and address problems that in the past we had different tools to do. Sometimes change is hard. It is hard for everyone that is experiencing it. Our police officers are under immense stress right now. They have a job that is really challenging. And, you know, part of the previous speaker talking about some of the challenges through his view that he feels he's facing in his role. They've worked our entire pandemic. They've been first responders. And I think just like everyone else, they're tired. We too, the lion's share of what constituent complaints I get are around issues of poverty and homelessness. And it's exhausting sometimes to continue with the same message and telling the same thing, but that's the job we all kind of swore to do. So we're setting our work plan, and then right after that is going to be city budget time. And so April, kind of leading into May, is when the city budget is presented. And we're going to get the economic forecast. We won't have the economic forecast that the state just had, where it seems like they have excess cash. That is not happening at municipal levels because of COVID. And so we're going to have probably leaning into a lean year. And I think that's going to be challenging for us to operate. Of all the years I've been a city councilor, I don't think we've seen quite the budget situation we're in, but we had reserves for a reason. We had reserves to be able to expel money when we needed to during an emergency. That has been the last 2 years. I think the upside of pandemic is meetings like this. It's much easier for me to do 3 or 4 meetings in a night, just like it is easier for you guys to attend them. We're getting a lot more community engagement into elected business and how we operate. More people are watching our city council meetings, engaging with us in multiple places. And we also have been operating the city's ARPA fund. So the American Rescue Act fund that was passed by Congress, the city was awarded $16 million. I worked with our regional delegation of senators and state reps to bring in an additional $13 million. And what we're doing now is working towards spending out that money. We helped Home Plate Youth Services secure capital campaign money. They're the only nonprofit in Washington County addressing youth homelessness. We helped the Hoops open up a daycare facility. We are in a daycare desert. They desperately needed money in their capital campaign fund. We helped secure that funding. We secured money for our Patricia Research Center for the Arts, money that we had lost due to, we had a portion of lottery money that was going to be allocated to us. However, when the pandemic hit and the lockdown happened, people stopped gambling. And so that revenue that was coming in was a shortfall for us. And so those are a couple of the projects. We've also secured $2.3 million to site a homeless shelter in Beaverton, a year-round one. As you know now, or maybe you don't know, we operate severe weather sheltering. So when the weather is severe, we open the shelter. So during extreme heat, during extreme cold, we also had it open on a way more regular basis during the pandemic when there was nowhere for anyone to go. In the new center, we secured money to also open up a clinic. That way people, prior to being the mayor, I come from a healthcare background. I know how incredibly important it is to have healthcare resources where people are. I mean, think about just vaccinations, not just COVID vaccine, flu vaccine, any kind of communicable diseases. Where are people that are sleeping outside getting them? That puts the rest of us at public health risk. If they're in the library, we see them in the store. And then there's also just the, when you sleep outside, things like sores on your feet, you're exposed to weather, how are we getting treated, mental health services, well exams. We get seen, I have a 4-year-old, we're teaching her that the doctor doesn't only mean you're sick. Sometimes we go to make sure we're not sick. And so those are some of the things we've been able to do. ARPA money, we've also have secured money to do a nonprofit incubator. we don't have a lot of what they call CBOs, community-based organizations that do work on behalf of the community that are not for profits. They exist around Beaverton, but Beaverton itself doesn't have a lot of nonprofits doing the work for our community. So what we want to do is treat it like a business incubator. So people that have ideas that come in, they learn how to do financing, they learn how to do bookkeeping, they know how to fundraise money, all of those things. And we have a very successful technology incubator that is pretty unique for a municipality to run. We're going to mirror that to build capacity for CBOs. And so we've gotten money from the federal government and the state government to do that kind of work. We're creative. We're on, doing things in spaces that other cities don't do. And so I would tell people that while sometimes it feels like the sky is falling, our city is actually in a pretty great shape and we're doing some pretty cool things. So that's my high level update. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, that was great. You actually addressed several questions. It looks like Joe has a question.
Yes, thank you for being here, Mayor. As you know, the leaf blowers put out a lot of pollution. Somebody says that 1 hour of leaf blowing is equivalent to driving a car across country. I'm not sure how fact that is, but they are fairly pollution oriented. And of course, we want to keep the greenhouses down. Has the council discussed banning gasoline leaf blowers in the Beaverton area?
Joe, if I were queen for a day, that would be the first thing I would do. My staff laugh because I swear to God, they follow me. And I could be in City Hall and they're there. I leave my front door and they're there. I think it's like a conspiracy at this point. I also think beyond the pollution piece, which is a huge concern, and the reason why I think we could move in a direction to address that policy is that with way more people working at home, it's really impacting people's quality of life. There's two main things I want our council to address that I don't think we're going to get to this year. This and fireworks. There are two very livable issues in our neighborhoods, and it is something, I am separate from the council and the fireworks as a veteran, as a mom, as a pet owner. We're as a veteran, married to a veteran, we're not canceling America's birthday by not having fireworks or not, or going towards a municipally run one. So that is a long answer to say, I am with you in spirit. Our new council is, I think it's important to also remember 3 of our counselors are new. And learning how to be elected officials. And so, and then also learning how to, us old timers, which I'm about to be the longest serving elected official, and I've been elected only for 8 years, is that we now are having to learn how to direct a city manager, and not in an excuse. I'm very frustrated with everyone else that things aren't moving at a faster pace, but I would say we have a council that is more open to hearing this. And I think, one of the things that I hope comes out of our climate action committee, which we were able to stand up this year, it was our first climate action task force, was something I wanted to do as mayor. I was able to implement it. We selected our members, we have them in place. My hope would be that some of the recommendations could come out of the climate action task force to the council. Because I think it is the pollution piece that's really concerning, but it's also noise pollution and a livability issue.
Right. I work for the noise abatement office out of Portland. I'm very aware of noise and planes flying over and how much that impacts people. Thank you.
And there's another question here. Do we have time for another question?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes, don't worry.
Okay, so what are the top 3, oops, can you pop that question up again? Where did it go? Okay. The top 3 challenges.
Just once the pandemic wind down for you. So I think as the pandemic is winding down, I think economic recovery is going to be something that we have to talk a lot more about. Making sure that people are able to rebound financially from this crisis. We know that families, particularly women and women of color, were hit the hardest during this pandemic. They're going to be trying to re-enter the workforce with gaps in their resume. And so making sure we can address that. Beaverton in its soul is a small business state. And so we lost a lot of small businesses. Now, Beaverton has actually done quite well during the global pandemic. We only have a 2% commercial vacancy rate. Part of that is misfortune of our neighbors, Portland, and a lot of businesses want to come here, and we're really ready to go. But we have to make sure that they have the support and resources they need to stay open. For me, one of the top things that I'm going to spend a lot of my time working on is childcare and after school care. As a mom of a 4-year-old, it is incredibly challenging when my kid gets out of school at 1:30. And I think that is a good tie to economic recovery, because even medium and high income earners can't leave work and pick up their children. So how are we as a community going to address that? We are a childcare desert. It is incredibly expensive. Our childcare is almost as much as our mortgage. And families are on the brink of not being able to function going forward. So those are kind of doom and gloom forecasts, but I think we're coming forward. The other thing I hope that we can do in this next year is have a meaningful conversation around policing. I think sometimes as we do this work that it becomes very political, but I want us to look at community policing through the lens of, do we have the right people doing the right work? We've asked our police officers to be everyone's everything. And just like the officer that spoke before me, they end up becoming this place where if it doesn't have a home, people call the police department and they don't have the resources to deal with the level of problems we're doing. And so it is not about not having police. I always want to have police. I think it's about the level of response that comes, right? So when breaking into my home, I hope the police officers show up. If it's a cousin having a mental health crisis, I hope it's a trained mental health professional that shows up to deal with it. It is hard to have these conversations in a very politically divided world without setting up camps with no room to grow. How we have this conversation in our city, I hope to be an example to other cities. I think it is going to be challenging, but a worthwhile conversation that, just like when I thought we should be a sanctuary city, if you call 911, you should have the best response possible to come to your house. And that is the way that I want us to frame this conversation. Because if we other ourselves and we make it about political agenda on either side, we're never going to get an outcome that is what the community wants us to do. I think being an elected official, this is a really hard time to be one. We're going to be making very hard challenges and decisions for our community over the next year. And I encourage the community to participate as we kind of make those decisions. That was maybe a little bit more than 3, but that's what's been on my heart and mind for the last couple of months.
Great, thank you so much. And I want to be respectful of your time. I
got 5 more minutes for you if you guys want to ask some questions. Yeah.
Okay. Karin.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about homelessness, or the new term houselessness. And so I was wondering if, I haven't seen really a Beaverton plan for, because as that officer was saying, they can hop on Max and get up here, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And the other thing is that if we're going to build this new homeless shelter, I mean, they're going to hear about it and they're going to come when that homeless shelter comes. So we want to be in your homeless shelter. So I was wondering if there is a black and white plan that I could read.
Well, I think one of the things about government is that we often do, and we don't take the time to tell what we're doing. And so I think what you want is like a white sheet, and that's not available yet. I will tell you, there's shelter places all over, and I don't think that's necessarily what draws people to a community. I think it's a multifaceted problem. There is a whole host of people that would never go into a shelter, mostly families, women, and on the other end of the spectrum, people, active drug users, stuff like that. And so we need a system that is multifaceted. And so here in the city, what we're doing about homelessness is we created a safe haven parking program where you can safely park your car and sleep in it. The average age user of that program is a 70-year-old woman. Our homeless population does not look like sometimes what it looks like in other communities. We have the highest rate of teen homelessness in the state, and it doesn't look like camping under a freeway. And so we are putting together resources for those kids because they're still homeless, they're houseless, they don't have a place at night, they expend their resources doing that. We're doing that through agencies like Home Plate Youth Services. We're starting the conversation on where the shelter will be sited. We're working with the county to operate it through the funds that were passed by Metro last year. And so we will site the building, other professional people will run it. That will give us the opportunity to house some of the people that are here. And then once we start solving a little bit, taking meaningful first steps, there will always be a population that will not want any of the services we do. Our ability to address those becomes a lot easier under the Martin v. Idaho or by Martin v. Boise case, where the opposite to saying, please don't sleep here, is we have a safe place for you to go. If there's a safe place for them to go and they refuse to go, that becomes a very different issue. The other kind of challenging piece of the puzzle here that the officer that spoke before me alluded to is jail capacity. And so all of the mayors in Washington County at my request met last week with our sheriff and our DA to talk about what is happening with jail capacity, because our officers don't have the tools they need to fix some of the problems they have right here, because there's nowhere to take them even if they arrest them. That is a complicated situation to be in. What we know is COVID has made it so they have to be more physically distant. So the capacity of the jail has gotten lower. The ability to staff a courtroom because of people's interpersonal relationship has gotten shorter. And so we are not doing as many cases as we were doing before. And so what that means is people in the jail, in our county jail, that have committed serious crimes that should be at a state level facility aren't moving to create that capacity. It was a bit of a frustrating meeting, but we're talking through more plans about how to better utilize our municipal courts. Like, how can Beaverton Court, Tigard Court, Hillsborough Court relieve some of the pressure on the system to help kind of things move along? I think that is a lot of things that we're working on at one time. None of them are going to immediately result in not seeing 5 homeless people in a shelter across from the library. But the shelter, I want you to know, it's kind of like real estate. It has not been the same people for the last few months. Our mental health court has moved people out of that facility into permanent housing more than once. We've helped to wrap around with resources. They've moved on. Our safe haven parking program has gotten people into stable services, but the look from the community looks the same, because it's hard to tell that those people are actually kind of moving and coming through. So I wish if I had the magic solution, I'd probably be the governor or the president. I'm just trying to work at the mayor's level, bringing people together to have conversation and addressing this. And I will tell you, this is the main work that I've been doing as mayor, which is why the 8 major cities got together and we're asking the legislature for resources, because our city can only do so much without the resources we need to address the problems.
It just seems like that, you know, I don't go downtown Portland anymore. I absolutely do not go down there. I mean, we're worried about when I drive across, when I have to get to the airport or something. So I don't want to be able to not want to go to Beaverton, because that's where I live. So I'm really concerned about, you know, the escalation of this problem without a solution that I can see. So I hope you keep working on it and hope you get something out there in writing for me.
Thank you. How are we doing on time? Do you need to head off to the next meeting?
One more.
Okay. If there isn't one coming up there, I know one that was submitted earlier has to do with the roads in disrepair. I know with several locations along Milliken Way are in great need of repair. Also intersections near Cedar Hills Crossing. And the question around that is, when can we see streets and roads in Beaverton receive the repairs they need?
Well, I drive on Milliken every day because my office is at City Hall, so I probably disagree with the assumption that that road is not maintained well. It's one that's maintained pretty well. Roads are really challenging. So the federal government used to cover 80% of road construction costs. They no longer do that, so the cost is really borne on the city. We have a really robust street resurfacing program that we do. And so that information can find on the website. And so we're constantly looking at how to resurface roads, how to make sure that our roads are 30-year roads. So if we put in an investment, that we are able to continue that investment. one of the things that the city council has implemented over the last couple of years to maybe address some of the patchwork issue that people see is a franchise fee for people that cut into the infrastructure. So if you're cutting into it to lay a lot of water pipe, if you're cutting into it to run fiber, or you're cutting into it to run 5G or whatever it is that you're doing, there used to not be such a high standard that that patch that went in was sufficient to make sure that our road could stay at a 30-year road. And so we've instituted a franchise fee for those people that use our right of way that drive massively on it, like freight companies. And so we're attempting to create a revenue stream to fix some of these problems from a high utilized population. And a lot of money we also used to receive was from gas tax. And so when people stop driving, drive electric cars, it is really great for the environment, but it's revenue that we're now trying to figure out how to backfill. So we have a street plan you can find if you're interested in like where we're at and doing these roads. And so I would say we actually receive really high ratings from people that measure the roads and the work that we do. And here's one thing I know as an elected official. If it is the one thing that you see every single day and you leave your house and it's the same pothole that you see every day or the same sign that's down, it just grinds on you. It does it to me too. And so that becomes the focus of like, by the time that you email me to be like, where I think it would be like, hey, Mayor, I was riding my bike down Milliken and, this pothole hasn't been fixed in a couple months, turns into like rage because you've seen it 100 times. So I would say, reach out to me if there's a major issue on your street that you think we haven't missed or we've not seen. But talk to me like it's the first time you've told me this problem so I have a chance to address it.
Very well. Thank you so much. And we all appreciate you spending your time with us this evening.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mayor.
awesome. Also, I'm really easy to find. You can email me. I have my public email address available on the city website. So feel free to reach out anytime. Like I'm your inside guy in City Hall. So questions, I'm always happy to answer. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mayor Beaty. And next we can go back, since we did skip over Cameron with our 1210 Valley Parks and Rec District report. We'll have Cameron give us an update.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. First of all, I'm replacing Mike Cero for this meeting again, like I did in November. He had a Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee, so he was double booked, so I'm filling in for him. I've got a lot of updates. A lot of great things have been talked about tonight. Most of these are pretty light updates compared to what we've been talking about, so hopefully they're well received. But first of all, Joe, I wanted to talk about the blower situation. I think for Tualatin Hills, we definitely take care of a lot of the public space throughout Beaverton. For the last 2 or 3 years, we definitely have understood the need for quieter leaf blowing, and we've been making a very concerted effort to replace a lot of our fleet maintenance blowers with all electric equipment. It's a larger capital money replacement process going through all that, but it's been on the forefront of our minds, and we're definitely cognizant of it. We know it's annoying. At the same time, we get folks that call in and want surfaces clean, surfaces well taken care of, and that's the easiest tool to do that. But we definitely understand the noise pollution, the actual pollution in the air is higher priority. So we are working on that. We're aware of it, and we're replacing more of our fleet every single year with electric blowers. So that's a good thing.
Great. Good work. Thank you.
Yeah. So most of our updates here, most of these details can be found on our website. So I'll give you the highlights. And if you have more questions, the website for Tualatin Hills is very robust. We can find a lot of information there. First and foremost, Tualatin Hills is hiring. Like most people, we have a lot of opportunities available, anywhere from custodians. We have our CFO position, I believe, is available right now. So there's a ton of positions open. We let a lot of people go at the beginning of COVID, and we're slowly bringing everybody back, and things are feeling more back to normal at the Park District. Spring registration is coming, so save the date for spring registration on Saturday, February 26th. All activity guides are online for classes that run from March to June. I looked at the catalog recently. There's a ton of classes available, so for anybody curious, the full spectrum of that is online, and registration on Saturday, the 26th. Fall planting time is here. Staff are planting trees and cleaning up several parks and trails in the area. You can volunteer now at one of our many one-day volunteer signups. A special thanks to this NAC for the tree planting activity this month at Schiffler Park. That's actually one that's under my responsibility. So I've been working with some of the folks from the Central Beaverton NAC, and the planting is going to take place this Saturday. We have about 38 volunteers right now, and we're putting in 14 trees. So we'll be doing that throughout the spring in different areas. The spring native plant sale starts this month, so you can order online between February 15th to March 15th. Pick up plants in April at the Nature Center. Selecting more from 100 species of climate-resistant native plants to help support the nature park. We also have preschool registration is open this month. We offer 9-month preschools throughout the district. Registration is open for families for the next school year. Sign up now. We have a few throughout the district. One is under my area of responsibilities at Jenkins Estate. We've got a bunch of kiddos that go up there every single day for 9 months. That's definitely a great program that we offer. Middle school, cross country, and track coaches are needed. We need volunteer coaches for middle school track and field. More information on the website. The Conestoga pool, if anybody swims there, the repairs are almost complete. We're very excited to welcome people back in the pool in March. We've been doing a large replacement of the pool deck. Our building maintenance team, which is a separate team from where I work, has been conducting most of that work, but it looks like it's due open in March. So that's a big update because that's one of our more well-used pools. Just a general reminder about reporting tree hazards throughout this entire winter, and this is kind of directly my area of responsibility. We've had a lot of tree hazards throughout the district. We've got trained arborists on staff, myself included, to go through and clean up hazard trees. So always call in to our main number on the website. If you ever see trees down near park areas, or even if it's not in a park area, you can call in and we can try to get you in the right direction for getting roads cleared or pathways cleared, or if there's an imminent danger, we want to get there as soon as possible. So we always encourage everybody to call in quickly. Also, there's definitely a need. Everybody wants more dog runs and dog park areas in the greater Beaverton area. We just opened one at Evelyn Schiffler Memorial Park about 1.5 years ago. And the newest one is expected this year at Ridgewood Park, just off 217 there in Beaverton. Planning work is underway and we're designing the permitting phase for a new fenced dog run there. Construction will happen this year. There was a pilot program there at that site and it was well received. So what was a temporary dog park will be permanent. And we're trying to look for any possible place to incorporate those for folks that have dogs, that want to take them out to be with other dogs and meet other dog owners. So that's always a priority for us. But that's pretty much our February updates. Kind of a lot of information, but we are bringing a lot of staff back on, and we have a lot of things happening at the Park District. So it's exciting to see after 1.5 years of relatively quiet, just maintaining and trying to get everything back on track. So it's good to hear.
Thank you. It sounds like you're back in full force as
Yeah,
far as activities.
We're working on it. Yeah. And Mike also said, in addition to the updates, that he wanted me to get information about the passport project. It's a collaboration between, I think, the Highland NAC and the West Beaverton for this summer.
As well as Sexton Mountain.
And Sexton Mountain, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Park Passport will be one of the big events coming up. It'll be at the end of summer. And the 3 NACs, we all got together and decided we wanted to collaborate so we could have more meaningful, enjoyable events for the public. And that's one of them. So we'll have more information on that coming up, and I'll have an announcement later. We'll have an invitation in March for public input.
Okay. Yeah. I know I sat down with Mike before this meeting, and he mentioned his only thought initially for that was, I think we're still learning about what that'll be, but if there's going to be parks that are visited, possibly more weekends to get that done and less parks per weekend. So folks have a chance to get around and see a lot of different areas instead of rushing from one park to the other. That was about the only input that Mike had. He wanted me to relay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. I know when we talked, that was actually a very good suggestion that we hadn't thought of yet, but we're still in our planning process. And that makes perfect sense as well. Okay. Gosh, any questions for Cameron? What, Joe?
Hey, Cameron. Listen, we live real close to Roy Dancer Park. And every now and then there was, during the summer, some homeless people would camp out there and we called the police. And has there been an increase in people trying to camp out at different various parks in your system?
Yeah, I actually am the manager for Roy Dancer. I believe I've spoken with you possibly before about the weather stripping on that back staircase leading.
Right.
Yeah, Roy Dancer is an interesting one because it's right near the Rite Aid.
Right.
So similar to what the officer spoke about and Mayor Beaty spoke about, there's nothing illegal about being in the parks. What we try to discourage, obviously, is leaving trash behind, leaving encampments behind. And for Park Patrol, they don't allow folks to camp out overnight. So they will go in and cite people and they'll get help from Beaverton Police to get them out of the parks at nighttime. So we're not encouraging folks to stay overnight. They can be there all day as long as they're not being disruptive or they're not using drugs or alcohol. We definitely have rules against that. So our Park Patrol is very aware of that. I haven't seen a large increase, honestly, in the parks, but we also have made a very large concerted effort to increase lines of sight throughout the park. So if you're at a park entrance, lifting up the trees, decreasing vegetation areas near trails, we're trying to make it as difficult as possible for people to, I guess, make a camp in a park and try to make it as open and secure as possible for families that are using the parks. Our natural resource department, the folks that manage the natural wooded areas, Lawami Woods, Kaiser Woods, all the large areas, they have more issues with there. But we definitely work with the police department to clean up whatever camps come in as quickly as possible. So similar to tree concerns, we want folks to let us know if somebody's living there or littering, being unsafe, making other people uncomfortable, because our number one priority is always the folks that visit the parks. So we're very aware of the situation. I haven't noticed a huge uptick in the parks themselves, but I feel like we have good cultural controls and environmental controls that we use to keep the park safe and clean as best as possible.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cameron.
Yep.
Karin.
Karin?
Yes, now I'm confused. I thought Lacey said that we couldn't kick people out of the parks.
Well, I also was a bit confused about that as well. I know for the park district rules, parks close at 10 or sunset for areas that have lights. So we always say you can't camp overnight, and our Park Patrol does go and issue exclusions for folks that do camp overnight. And I don't know if that's just specifically because it's park district property that we're allowed to do that, whereas the city may not be able to. But I do know our Park Patrol issues exclusions all the time and gets assists to get people out of the parks. So I would have to ask our Safety Services Department if there is a differentiation between what officers on public roads are allowed to do versus park district property. I was also confused about that, but I do know that, yeah, we don't encourage people to stay overnight, and we move them along if they are staying there overnight. But I can get back to you or the NAC or ask Mike to do that. I just know that's our protocol when we have those issues in the parks at nighttime.
There was a question that popped up from another panelist, city parks versus THPRD parks. So are there, maybe that was the distinction she was making?
Possibly, yeah. For the city parks, obviously there's the one by the library, but Tualatin Hills takes care of most of the park services in the park. I mean, the city takes care of a lot of the stormwater, takes care of almost everything except for like park specifics or recreation specific types. And we have about 100 parks in the district. So I get that confusion a lot, but the park district definitely owns a ton of property in Beaverton and takes care of over 100 parks, all the swim centers, recreation centers, nature parks, Jenkins Estate, all those areas. So I'm assuming that would be the difference as to enforcement policies.
Thank you. Any other questions for Cameron? That looks good. Well, Cameron, thank you for another wonderful update for us. And I'll make sure Mike knows how well you did. Yeah, you're getting applause. You can't hear it, but you're getting some applause from the background. So applause for Cameron.
Again, if there's any other questions or concerns you'd like me to follow up on, you can let Mike know and we can get back to you.
Okay. I know Mike was going to identify, speaking of parks and Park Passport, he was going to identify the liaisons for Sexton Mountain and Highland. You're not one of them, are you? Do you happen to be one of those liaisons?
Well, I take care of, I'm like the maintenance manager for Central Beaverton, like Bose, all the way to Cooper Mountain. So Sexton Mountain Park, Carrollwood, Roy Dancer, Fir Grove, Channing Heights, all those parks are under me. So I may end up being that person. And that's
Okay,
great if so, but I'll let Mike make that decision.
okay, great. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And on our agenda, we do have Amy with the City of Beaverton, and we'd love to hear your update.
Great. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I have 3 updates to share from our communications manager at the city. The first one is about the Beaverton Community Vision. It's underway, and it is a project that we get input from community members to provide a framework to help determine what kind of community we want for the future. It is led by the Visioning Advisory Committee, which is the volunteer group leading the effort. And the current update consists of outreach to community members, surveys, virtual and live events, and other participation. The goals include involving the city's population in the process, focusing on intentional outreach to traditional underrepresented groups, being responsive to the changing needs of the community, and developing a final product that's useful for city council and staff. The latest update was in 2016, and it included 5 goals and 104 actions. And many of those have been completed or are currently in development. The current update will reflect outcomes that will inform the city's vision in a new and different way. And you can learn more about that at beavertonoregon.gov/vision. And I will go ahead and put that link in the chat as well. And second update is the Beaverton City Council election filing is underway. We do have 4 city council positions that are open. The deadline to file is Tuesday, March 8th at 5 p.m. The primary election is May 17th and the general election is November 8th. The candidates must be 18 years or older by the election date, a qualified elector of the state, and have lived in the city 6 months prior to the election date. If you're interested, interested candidates can get the candidates filing handbook that has requirements, and you can obtain that either at Beaverton City Hall or at beavertonoregon.gov/elections. Like I mentioned, there are 4 city council positions that are open. One position is position 3, and it is vacant due to resignation with 3 years remaining on the unexpired term for that office. And then we also have councilor positions 1, 2, and 5, and they will be nominated at the primary election and elected at the general election to serve a 4-year term. At the primary election, the 2 candidates with the most votes for each position will proceed to the general election ballot. If one candidate receives a majority of all votes cast, then that candidate alone is nominated to the general election ballot. The candidate with the majority of votes at the general election is elected. And then the final update is just about the city council meetings. Our mayor did allude to some of this, but let's see, you can learn more about what the city council is discussing by reviewing the minutes and agendas at beavertonoregon.gov/citycouncil. And some of the topics this month include presentations on the Comprehensive School Resource Officer Review, the Milliken Way Project, and the Downtown Equity Strategy Update. There are also work sessions, and they include a review of legislative bills, capital improvement plan priorities and reimbursement districts. And the city council will also review and discuss 2-year strategic goals, which were identified in late 2021, and also a priorities work plan. Let's see, we've already had 2 city council meetings. One was even this evening for February, and the next city council meeting is on February 22nd. And those are the updates for February.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Amy? Yeah. You did such a perfect job, Amy.
Just reading what they tell me to read. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our treasurer's report, and that will be coming from Joe, our treasurer.
Okay, well, just let everybody know, we haven't spent too much money recently. We still have $8,320.52 in the checking account. And is this time talking about the change, Sue? We're trying
Sure,
to
go
change,
ahead.
yeah, we're trying to change banks from Bank of America to Rivermore, and the city, there's been some, I guess, confusion on it, just what we can do and can't do as a sort of a nonprofit, but not legally so from a IRS standpoint. I actually had visited at one point Screen Credit Union yesterday, and just asked them about this happening, and apparently what they want for us to open an account there, it's pretty much the same thing that Rivermark wants, which is basically some notes from the organization, minutes, bylaws, and a letter from the city saying we can do this we're on the city letterhead. So if Miles is working on this, and so I'm assuming that maybe if we can get this letter from the city to Wendell and get over to Rivermark and get this taken care of, because what I remember when I went to Rivermark was pretty much the same what at one point told me today. So let's just keep Miles working to get the city to get that letter so we can get the change made.
It sounds like then, Joe, that maybe that was the major or one piece that we were missing.
That letter.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, and just has to be on a letterhead, and just authorizing our organization to use the tax ID number for the city, plus a few of these other facts, and then we could do it.
Okay.
So just have to wait for the city, I guess.
All right, and I know Amy might have taken some notes on that too, but we'll make sure that Miles has that information if he didn't have it already. Oh, Wendell, I don't know if there was a question that popped up.
Yeah, it says, what is the source of our income and what are the funds typically spent on in a non-pandemic year? Well, I don't know.
Did you want me to take that, Joe?
Yeah, why don't you, because you have more
Okay.
history than I do.
Okay, so our treasury is actually funded just by events that we carry on. We've done garage sales and different things that the city might sponsor where there could be reimbursement for volunteers from the different NACs. So typically that's how we fund it. For us, we tend to focus a great deal on education efforts. So we have what we call the Pages as Pillars program. That is a reading program for the elementary children at Chehalem Elementary. And we do provide books for the children. And the goal there is to make sure they have a library to call their own. We found that many of the children have none or maybe one book at home, and that's it. So we have done this program for, gosh, going on a dozen years or more. And we have been providing twice a year, anywhere from average 10 books per child to them. And during the pandemic, of course, that slowed down because the schools weren't open. And we certainly hope to pick that up again. So that's where some of our funds go. We do have funds in our treasury that are earmarked specifically for that purpose. We also volunteer to read with the children. And then the other education effort we have is the Karin Scout Memorial Scholarship Fund, where we do provide a scholarship for a graduating senior who lives within our neighborhood boundaries. And they submit an essay, they fill out a questionnaire, and different things that they do in volunteering. And then we will have a committee where we review those applications, and then we select a winner to be the recipient of the scholarship. The scholarships are paid directly to the school that they will be attending. So that way they have a fund, and then tuition or books and other course fees would come out of that. And those are the major things we do. Of course, this year we're going to be participating in the other events. Pages as Pillars is, I'm sorry, I already said that. Park Passport, P. Gee, we do have a lot of events with the letter P, but the Park Passport is going to be a big one for us because each of the 3 NACs that are collaborating, we all selected 3 projects, and that was the one that we are primarily the organizers of. The other events are tree planting with Friends of Trees, and also the disaster preparedness. So we will be using funds to go toward those efforts too. And the city does provide a matching fund grant, and we just make application to get matching funds for efforts, which just helps us do more. So all the NACs can participate in that, and we can just make our dollars stretch further so that we can provide greater resources, greater things for the neighbors that we live next to. Does that answer the question, I hope?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and just to let you know, the reason we're changing accounts is that the bank, Bank of America, where we did business, is closing, or if not already closed. And so we need to get something a little closer to home. So that's the main reason we're moving to another.
Yeah. And what Joe was saying, as a nonprofit, we really need it. We've decided that a credit union might be the better avenue because commercial banks do have very high balance requirements in order to avoid monthly service charges. And we've been okay so far, but there were periods in our treasury where we did not have sufficient balance. And really, when you're a nonprofit, $10, $15 a month, that could go a long way for buying books for kids.
Right.
So that's why we're searching to move that. That's why we want to move to Rivermark.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
And Karin, I don't know if you happen to get any information on BCCI or if
No, I stopped going.
it's okay. Thank you, Karin. And
All
a
right.
lot of the information that Amy provided us, oftentimes that same information is discussed at the BCCI meetings. And BCCI, for those who don't know, is the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement. Again, volunteers from all the communities, and every NAC has a volunteer at that meeting too. So we all have representation. Okay, next up is old business. Well, we already talked about a couple of things. One was the moving of our account for our treasury. The other, certainly the park passport. Any other old business? Of course, we did have a couple months off there, so we'll start up with some new stuff, then it'll become old business.
Well, did anybody volunteer to be the new BCCI rep?
We have not, thank you, Karin. We have not had a volunteer for that as of yet. So anybody who would like to be the BCCI rep, just let me know.
It's a lot of nice people.
Yes. And it certainly keeps you right there in the pulse of what's happening in the city. Good contacts too. For new business, just to let you know, the next meeting will be March 16th. That meeting is going to be a little different than what we usually do. We're certainly going to have the police and fire report. Fire, of course, is going to be on their website, but we'll have police representation in Tualatin Hills Park and Rec. But the primary focus is going to be our park passport. This is the meeting where we are going to invite the public to share some ideas on what they would like to see in the summer event, and also encourage and welcome any volunteers who would like to participate with us. Again, this is a neighborhood event, and our NAC is representation for all the neighbors, and all neighbors in each NAC's boundaries are members. So please feel free, anybody you know you want to share the information with, to tell them about this, and we welcome all hands to help out. And as I mentioned too, for other new business, we will be, okay, I was just reading a message there. And also the other NACs are going to be doing the disaster preparedness and tree planting. And the tree planting does involve more than just trees. It involves natural, native plants as well. But we'll have the experts from Friend of Trees to provide their leadership. And also what they do is follow up. It's an opportunity for neighbors to be able to put in an application for a tree. If you have a gaping spot in your yard somewhere, you can certainly apply to them to acquire a tree. And the sign up, okay. Oh, yes, thank you, Amy. So the sign up for the March meeting is going to be the same as we have in the past. Just send your request and your email address to our West Beaverton email. It's WB, as in West Beaverton _NAC @yahoo.com. And we'll be able to make sure everyone gets that invite. Okay. Any other new business or comments? All right.
I got one question. I forgot how you saved the chat. Does anybody remember how to do that? I did last time, but I can't find the buttons.
Amy, do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I might be the only one that has the ability to do that. I'm not sure. If you could take a look. If you have the ability, it's going to be at the bottom as if you're going to type a message. There are 3 dots, and then it's there should be the ability to do it then. Actually, it might not, since our meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, it doesn't show.
Yeah.
Because I did it another time, but it doesn't look like I can do it this time. Well,
I know when I tried it before, it didn't save for me.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I will look into that. Yeah, because we should be able to save it. Yeah.
Okay. And Douglas Hoy said, thanks to all of us for our service. Thank you, Douglas. And Wendell was bringing up with regard to our Caring Scout Memorial Scholarship. We will be sending information. Yes, he was asking, shall we be sending information to the high school soon? And yes, we definitely need to do that because May is going to be here sooner than we know. And we want to make sure the schools have the information to pass to their graduating seniors so we can get those applicants in. And that, again, is for any graduating senior or someone graduating early, anybody who lives within our NAC boundary. So it doesn't matter which school they go to. They're just a resident within our NAC. Any other questions? Thank you, Wendell.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do I get into the video part of government Zoom in San Pedro Belize on an iPhone?
you don't have to. You should not do this.
Hi, Kate. There you are.
Are you crazy?
Could you translate that into English?
I am in San Pedro Belize. I've been trying to get into the meeting and we just have the Wi-Fi just does weird stuff. I don't have a laptop. I can't use my husband's tablet, so I had to use my iPhone, and it's just doing all this weird stuff about, anyways, I got in, I said I wanted to be a panelist, but you guys didn't seem to know I was here, and I was able to push on my iPhone, I pushed it over and it said, I can unmute the microphone so you guys can hear me. It's like a telephone call. I can't see you guys. You can't see me. And I'm unmuted talking at my iPhone. So, hey,
Well, I'm glad you finally made it through.
yeah, now, technically though, I made it through, but am I really part of this meeting?
Yes, of course. But I was so
Okay.
looking forward to seeing a background behind you of something so wonderful and relaxing and sunny. Well, of course, formerly sunny.
When you get back, Kate, I'll give you a call and brief you on what took place before you got on.
Oh, that would be lovely. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to go back to the main thing, but I will be listening, but you're not going to, I'm going to mute myself and I don't know if you probably can't see me either. I'll just listen to the rest of the meeting. And if I have anything to say, I'll have to do it like I just did it.
Okay.
But hopefully I'll try not to, because I don't want to interrupt the meeting, you know?
Meeting is over.
Yes.
Oh,
I think
But
we're
you're
down,
just in
we're
time.
finished. We're finished.
Okay. Are there any other questions or information to share?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
I'll
Is
second.
there a second?
Second.
All right. Meeting is adjourned, and I will see you all definitely on March 16th, and I will be talking to many of you way before then. Thank you for your
Bye.
attendance and your
Great.
participation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All
All
right,
right.
bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
and Amy, I'm coming home tomorrow. Are you still there?
Yeah, hold on just a second here.